Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie Bakay, and today I've got a pretty exciting race for you guys. It's Formula Renault 3.5 around Spa in iRacing. Last time I had a video about Formula 3 cars at Spa in iRacing, and that resulted in some incredible racing, and you should expect the same here today. This race had a lot of very exciting events and incidents that happened throughout, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit, but I really hope that you all enjoy this. And a couple things that I want to add about the FR 3.5 is that you have a DRS button that you can use at any point during qualifying, but only 8 times during the race, and it is definitely advantageous to use because it'll give you a bit more straight line speed, probably about half a tenth down a straight, and every hundredth matters, so that is useful. Right now we're going through my qualifying lap. I just started the first lap, and we'll go through and see what a hot lap is for me. I found that in the Formula Renault 3.5, you really want to take things smooth. It doesn't really respond well to throwing it into corners like the F3 car. You have to be much more smooth with your applications, and that's just, I think, what happens when you have higher downforce and you need to maximize your minimum speed by not scrubbing the tires that much. So going into no name, you see I actually get an off-track warning. So at this moment I was about a tenth down on my optimum lap, which was a 2:02. So it was looking pretty good, but yeah, I got the off track, so this lap is not going to count. But I'm still going to go through this whole qualifying session because in iRacing, I feel like qualifying is basically just as important as the race. It's just like in real life, you can't really win races if you're not starting at the front. Of course, it's fun to start from the back and you can make a lot of progress, but if you really want to be competing for a race, you got to qualify. So because of that, the qualifying is very important, especially when you only have 2 laps to get the job done. So anyways, I basically backed out of this lap after that invalidation. You can see I'm losing time left and right here. I didn't have the best Fania chicane as well, and I just took it easy going into the bus stop. Tried to get a really good exit to start my next lap. And so this lap now we're going to go into La Source, brake right after the 100 meter board. You really want to be aggressive on the brakes, take advantage of the high downforce, and then just nail the apex, get as close to the wall as you can at the apex of La Source, and use all of the track on the way out. Flat out, easily through Eau Rouge. The Formula Renault 3.5 cars have DRS buttons, and in qualifying you can use the DRS at any point, so you actually want to turn the DRS as soon as you get out of the La Source hairpin. But now going into Les Combes, you see I lose a little bit of time on my braking. I was trying to take it a bit smoother, but as a result of that I actually gain quite a bit in the second portion of Les Combes and end up about even with my optimum lap. Now going into Rivage, once again, difficult braking point, downhill braking, and you really have to carry the speed in. You want a really late apex in second gear to take you into no name, and then no name is also tricky into Pouin, which is another tricky corner. Both of them you just want to do light braking and then just make sure that your line is good and you're right on the apex. Now into the Fania chicane, brake right past that curb on the left side, and it'll carry you in, carry third gear through, and you have to do a slight lift going into the second turn of Fania, and then through campus in Stavelot. You want to get a good exit. Don't worry about compromising your minimum speed, just make sure that you get a good exit out of campus and then take it flat out through Stavelot. And then as soon as you get out of Stavelot, you want to turn on the DRS again. You should be able to take Blanchimont with no problem at all with the DRS on. And then into the bus stop chicane, my reference marker is about 5 meters after the dirt, and as you see, going out of the exit of the bus stop chicane, I pull a Checo Perez and just get on the throttle a bit too early and spin out entirely. And I was on track to probably do a low 202, but I ended up invalidating, and so I qualified last and decided to just start from the pits to avoid the carnage of turn 1. So now, coming out of the pits, you'll see that I'm starting right at the back, a bit late. I'm going to come out right after Lost Source, and I'm about 5 seconds behind last place, so you know, it keeps my nose clean so I don't have any incidents into turn 1, and this is an 18-lap race, so there's quite a bit of time for me to catch up, and with how flimsy these open wheelers are in iRacing, it's almost inevitable that there's going to be crashes. Like, for example, already 2 people had an incident into Eau Rouge, and we're out of the race immediately. Now going into Lake Com, we see more people having incidents. I have to do some evasive action. Thankfully, I just follow Frank through, and that's now 4 positions that I've made.
I got completely blasted in the end.
So yeah, so honestly, with my qualifying pace at a 2:02, that probably would have put me about P14 or 15 in qualifying. And honestly, I think I would have still gone with starting in the pit lane, because when you start in the middle of the pack, especially on a standing start, it's just the likelihood of getting in a crash and losing a ton of SR at the beginning of the race and having your race completely ruined is very high. So I would have taken the safe route anyways. I found myself in top split with this being my first race, and the guys at the top were very quick, running 1 minute 59s, and even after doing quite a bit of practice, and I've done a second race here where I got just right on the cusp of like a 2 minute 0.9 at 2:01. My optimal is like a 2 minute 0.7, I think. But yeah, no chance of me getting into the 59s anytime soon, I don't think. But you know, that's why you keep practicing. When you put the time in, you find the time as well. So it's just going to take a lot more work. But this being my first race, I'm pretty happy with at least my consistency so far. Other than my absolutely whiffed apex into La Source. But going through, you see I'm now up to P17. It says 18 because I think there's a pit lane thing. And now I'm just going to fast forward a bit as I catch up to Greg. The gap, look at the gap in the bottom right, it was 1.8, it's gone down to 1.5, and then we'll slow it down here, and you see I gained right up on the back of him. And in fact, Greg made an overtake on Neil here, so the two guys, the next 2 drivers are within a second of me. It's really close, and I just want to keep my nose clean still, let them battle, and then try to pick my way through while minimizing my time loss. There's no point in trying to fight every lap. Spa, you can do like a little slipstream chicken where you just go slipstream one person and the other, but I just want to get on with it, so I see a little gap, I'm in the slipstream, and I use my DRS. I only get 8 DRSs in a race, but out of Radeon, you see I make a nice double overtake straight through the middle. I'm very thankful I had the overspeed on both of them. And here I'm just going to give a quick little replay of that nice double overtake. You see the 2 guys are really close ahead, but I'm a bit further back, but because of that I get a nice slingshot. Follow the slipstream, 1 guy runs to the outside, straight through the middle. We're side by side by side, 3 wide. Thankfully, I'm able to have the overspeed. This guy looks up the inside, but I'm just able to pull ahead. And job done. That was a nice little overtake, so now I'm going to fast forward a bit because this is a very long race, and I want to show everything. I don't really want to make any cuts, but it would be, like 45 minutes if I showed everything. So we're fast forwarding. Zachary Fleury, the gap is about 3.5 seconds at the moment. Just trying to get some consistent laps in. You see there that my last lap was actually a 2:03.0, and then this lap is a 2:04.1. I hadn't really done any race practice, but I was happy with a 2:03. Not as happy with a 2:04, but if I can just be consistent, like stay within between 2:03 and 2:04, I'm pretty happy with the first race, or with this being my first race. Now we're slowing it down again. You see the gap to Zachary is 2.2 seconds now, and is coming down a little bit. And we're going to go into the bus stop chicane. And I missed apex on that one. Again, I'm still kind of getting to grips with the car, so the perfect laps aren't going to be coming in anytime soon. But, you know, this is the best way to practice, is just throw yourself into a race. And you see, actually, from starting in like 25th, I've gotten all the way up to 12th place already. Yeah, at the start of the race, I was 5 seconds behind the next guy. And now I'm almost in the points. So we're going to continue riding along through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Gap is still coming down to Zachary. Now it's 2.3 seconds, 2.2, 2.1. So you see I'm gaining a lot of time on the straights. And that, to me, was kind of an indication that he must have had some kind of damage. Because there's no way that I'm keeping up with him in the turns and also gaining a lot in the straights, because he would have, if his setup was a higher downforce setup, he would be gaining a lot in the turns, and then I would be gaining it back in the straight. But I'm only gaining in the straight and then keeping up in the turns. And you see, once again, I'm gaining and gaining. Now 1.5, 1.6 seconds. It's coming down. 1.2. And then here is the most important time to like really be dialed in. Don't make any mistakes, because, you know, we're right on the cusp of slipstream, and one mistake could be the difference between being stuck in P12 for the rest of the race and actually being able to make a move on this guy ahead. So you see I go a little bit wide into Pouhon, but I do carry a good amount of speed, and I'm able to keep a 1.1 second gap. Very solid Fenya chicane. I try to just take it as smooth as possible. I found that I can actually brake deeper than I was, but I think in general, like when you're not super comfortable in a car, it's always better to just brake earlier and try to find that optimal minimum speed, because if you can carry more speed through the corner, your exit is going to gain so much more time than your entry. So you see now, he must have made some kind of mistake into campus, because now I'm almost right on the back of him, a 0.4 second gap. Once again, I'm focused on just make sure I hit every apex, get clean laps, and keep with him, because now I'm in the slipstream, and the slipstream is worth probably 5 or 6 tenths down the Kemmel Straight. So that's the main overtaking area, and if you do it intelligently, you can make all your overtakes without actually losing any time. So here, you know, I'm right behind him going to Eau Rouge and Raidillon, so things are looking really good. I do a slight lift just to make sure I don't get too much overspeed, and then I just use my DRS, run to the left side, and you see how quickly I pull away in the straight. So clearly he had some kind of damage, making it a bit easier for me to catch up. But regardless, that now puts me into P11. And going through, I find that like always, like right when I get in front of somebody, I end up making a mistake in like the next corner. And you see here, I run a little bit deep, kept it pretty tidy actually, but I felt like I wasn't on the pace going into this last part, and that's something that I really need to work on, just making sure that I'm consistent throughout all parts of the race. You know, when I'm catching up, I find that I can be really consistent. When I get past people, that's when I struggle a bit. I start to lose focus and, you know, think that the job's done and forget about the fact that I have 10 more laps to go, you know. But in this case, I pull away. Although he's still in my slipstream, and he's right behind me. You see 0.5 seconds. We're just going to fast forward through all this because the gap stayed about the same, like he's just sitting in my slipstream. And so even with his damage, he's able to follow in the slipstream. That just shows how strong it is. And going into the bus stop, I took it cautiously, but it was pretty slow, and it allowed Zach to get really close to me, 0.3 of a second now in the gap. And I do not want to give up this position, but I also don't really want to fight. So like if he makes a good move on the straight, I'll just let him go. But if he's not able to get fully past me, I'm not going to let him go, but I'm going to try to minimize my time lost. So I throw on the DRS again to defend and protect from his slipstream. He follows me behind and then pulls along the left side. And as soon as he gets out of the slipstream, you can see that the engine power is just a bit too low, and I'm able to stay ahead. So I go to the middle of the track so I don't lose as much time as going on the outside. I take kind of a bad line into the second part of Lake Como, but I end up ahead. And you see actually Cuomo, the P2 guy, had an incident in Lake Como and crashed out. And so that now relegates me into P10, I believe. So into the points. And at the start of this race, my goal was to get P10. So right now, I'm feeling pretty good, you know. And in the scenic view, you see that Zachary behind actually spins out in the Fanny chicane. And that opens up the gap quite a bit. And like I was saying earlier, I'm feeling quite good about my position in this race because I started at the back of the grid and now I'm all the way up into P10 pretty safely as well because I have no one behind me. And you see when we fast forward a few laps, there's a 19-second gap to the next driver in P11. And you see there's another incident my spotter said in the chicane, and now I'm catching up on P9, who's only 1.5 seconds ahead, and I want to try to reel this guy in, but I was looking at his lap times and his pace and comparing it to mine, and it would have taken quite a bit to actually catch up to him. You see 1.5, 1.6 seconds. I just, at this point, at this stage in this series, I did not have the pace to keep up with him, and you see that he's just pulling away. When there's no slipstream, it's much harder to gain in the straight, of course. And then his advantage of being a little bit faster through the corners than me at this time means that he's going to gain. Plus, I'm trying to push hard, and because of that, I make little micro mistakes. Like right there, I locked up a bit, and that leads me to down a second on my lap. And we'll fast forward, and you see that the gap opens up to about 2.3, 2.4 seconds. And here on lap 15, you hear my spotter say, I have 2 laps of fuel left. And we just started lap 16, so we have lap 16, 17, and 18, which is 3 laps, which means I accidentally underfueled and didn't realize that I didn't have enough fuel until this moment. And at this point, I'm freaking out because if I run out of fuel, obviously I'm going to get a DNF. So I either have to fuel save aggressively or pit. And you'll see here, thankfully the gap behind me was really high, but you see here I tried to lift and coast and short shift really aggressively. Like I'm just sitting in 4th, short shift to 5th as soon as I get 1 bar. Lift and coast again, brake and coast in as much as I can to save fuel. But it's just too little too late. I mean, two laps of fuel left at going into no name with 2.5 laps to go is just, it's not going to happen no matter how much I try to save fuel. And I keep trying to save fuel because I realize that even if I do a pit stop and add 5 liters of fuel, I might still run out of fuel before the end of the race because you use about 3 liters per lap, and with three laps you're going to use about 9, a little over, or right around 9 liters of fuel, and I had about 4, and I was going to add 5, so it was really close. So I'm still fuel saving, and I'm looking at the gap, and I see the guy in P11 is 22 seconds behind, and at this point I make the decision. I say I have to pit because I'm not going to finish the race if I don't pit. Obviously, doing a pit stop in a sprint race like this is not ideal, but thankfully there is a decent gap, and you see right here I rush into the pit lane. This has to be the perfect pit stop, you know. If I make any little mistake, he's definitely going to come out ahead. So I hit the pit speed limiter, go straight into the pits. I see that replace tires was checked. I go to uncheck it right before I get in the pit lane, nail my marks, and do a very quick 3.1, just a small splash of fuel, and I'm out of there. If I hadn't clicked or unchecked replace the tires, it would have added another 5 seconds to my pit stop, and you'll see that's crucial because when I'm coming out of the pits, you see Tim is about 2 seconds behind me, and he's got the exit out of La Source that's going to basically have him gaining throughout all of the Kemmel Straight. And yeah, you see 1.9, 2 seconds. As soon as he gets up, he's going to start gaining quite a bit, and it's going to lead the gap down to about 1.5 seconds. Thankfully, I was able to come out ahead, but now I'm sitting on very worn tires with a guy chasing me down very quickly, and I just need to make sure I get the cleanest laps I can. And you see right here, I'm doing a good outlap so far, only 2/10 down on my optimal for this sector, but Britain is following, 1.6 seconds. Gap is coming down. Make a little bit of mistake in No Name, but it looks like he does as well. But yeah, still sitting at 1.5. And I'm not going to fast forward anymore for the rest of the race. I just want to show the last 2 laps in its entirety because it's pretty exciting. Going into the Fania chicane, I'm still looking at my fuel because I'm like, oh my god, am I gonna have enough even with this pit stop? And it looks like I have just about enough because it's saying 2.5 laps now. And normally the fuel estimation is a little bit off in the game, but it's a good reference. It says it's sometimes good, sometimes inaccurate, and I think it gets better as you do more laps as well, just because it's able to measure the average. But anyways, bus stop chicane is pretty slow. Honestly, I didn't carry much minimum speed through that corner, and as a result of that, Tim is within 1 second of me. So I need to nail this apex, which I do, and I take the widest possible line to get the best exit onto Eau Rouge and ready on into the Kemmel Straight. But you see he's in the slipstream, and he is gaining quickly. 0.9 seconds, 0.8, 0.7 is just coming down, and you'll see in the mirrors that his car is going to get much, much larger. But thankfully, by the end of the Kemmel Straight, he wasn't able to gain enough, and I was about 3/10 ahead. But the job is not done. I still need to get a clean lap with these absolutely destroyed tires. So thankfully, Tim also is going to have worn tires, and I'm hoping that my smooth driving early on in the race helped with the tire wear a decent amount. But if you look in the top right corner, I have a little tire overlay, and in the pits they were at about 80%, which means that they're probably about 1 to 1.5 seconds off their ultimate pace. Which makes it very difficult because obviously you're going to get a lot more oversteer, you're going to lose control easily. Also understeer, like just understeer on entry, oversteer on exit with everything because of the wear. But regardless, I keep pushing through, and once again, in the Fania chicane, Tim makes a mistake. So that's 2 people who are chasing me down that just happened to make a mistake into that same chicane. And I think a lot of people made mistakes in there. I think I counted like 6 total people spinning out there. It's definitely a popular place to make a mistake. It's very easy to do so. But this is the end of the race, and I just need to make it. You see I get a little snap of oversteer, but I catch it, and you see my excitement. I'm absolutely hyped because that was a long race, and I thought that I had absolutely bundled it. Like when I realized I was low on fuel, I was like, there's no way I can get in the top 10, but just got a perfect pit stop, and I think I did a lot of things right and in a rush, and I'm glad that I did. It easily could have been totally different. But anyways, that is my race at Spa in the Formula Renault 2.5 or 3.5. I'll have another one coming up as well, probably the day after this video comes up, but I appreciate everybody watching, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I took a little bit of a break from streaming and recording videos. I was still doing iRacing races, trying to get my SR up, but I got a new job, and it's basically required me to be working Monday through Friday, all day, so I haven't had that much time as I'm just onboarding with this job. But now that I've got a more set schedule, I'm very excited to get back into making more content for everybody, and I hope you all enjoy. Thanks so much, and goodbye.